Hey everyone. I think everyone's slowly starting to join. I am going to start in just a second. If y'all could leave yourself muted, that would be great. But you're welcome to turn on your video and maybe give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. That would be great. Or if one person could do that. Um, but okay, good. I got a confirmation. Very excited to start. It looks like people are still kind of trickling in. So I'm going to give it a couple of minutes before we dive in. Let me see. Oh, we have a lot of people joining. This is very exciting. I'm really excited for this particular talk today because I feel like so many people have questions about marketing and social media, especially. And I think there's so many different directions this can go. So just kind of a plan for y'all. I'm going to really dive into some marketing basics first, whereas I at first was going to just do social media because there's so many different apps and things we could cover. But I think actually starting with marketing basics is maybe a little bit better because I think you can't do social media well unless you know some kind of marketing strategies. So we're going to start there. And then I'm going to kind of buzz through like most of the social media platforms. And then I do want to leave a good like 20 to 30 minutes at the end for questions because I feel like marketing and social media is so tailored to you as an individual and as an artist. So I really want to leave room for everyone to ask questions at the end. And so if you have a question, and you think of it while I'm talking, you can just add it to the chat or, you can write it down, unmute yourself, and we can kind of go through questions at the end. And we'll have a lot of time for that. So yeah, we can probably jump in. It looks like people are still joining, but we kind of start with just an introduction so they can just join in when they get here. But let's dive in. So just a little bit of overview of what we will cover. We will start with kind of some marketing concepts, like general overview. Some of you may know this, some of you may not. Then we'll go into understanding your ideal customer. This is something I talk about pretty frequently. And so if you've done any kind of business course, business class, you might have heard of this explained as like client avatar, ideal customer, ideal avatar. There's so many different forms of it. Basically, we'll get into what it is, but it's who you want your customer to be. Then we'll talk about building a marketing funnel and kind of how social media plays a part in that. And then we'll go through pretty much every social media platform. So Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Pinterest, a few others, and then we'll kind of conclude, have the Q&A, and then I'll talk about some of my other resources. I will say we'll probably spend the most time on Instagram just because that's where the most people are. It's a super prominent platform for artists and creatives. So definitely want to make sure y'all get a lot out of that. So let's start with marketing concepts. So I'm going to move the Zoom bar out of the way because it's blocking all of my text. Okay. So marketing concepts. And some of you, again, you might know these ideas, but I want to elaborate on them because I think they'll help when we get into social media. So first, the best marketing doesn't feel like marketing. That one's kind of obvious. So I think the biggest issue a lot of artists have in particular is worrying about feeling salesy. And I think when we think about marketing, we're like, oh, well, I don't want to be salesy. I don't want to be pushy. But I think if you instead, and we'll talk about this today, flip marketing on its head and understand your customer and understand the value you're adding to them, you'll understand you're just telling them about something you're offering that's going to meet a need they have. And then it won't feel like selling. It'll feel like, oh, I'm telling them about something that's actually going to be a benefit to them. And we can do this in a lot of different ways. Next, marketing is really about capitalizing on how humans think. And there's a lot of different ways we can talk about this. But the first example I want to give is kind of the scarcity and urgency effect. So if you've ever seen an artist do an art launch or a product launch, and they're like, I only have 5 pieces, they're gonna, they sell out by midnight, whatever, and you see people just selling stuff so quickly, this is the scarcity effect at work. And it's because there's only so many available, you got to purchase them before they're gone. But it's also this urgency effect of, well, I see other people buying them, so I want to buy them. And this can be played out in a couple of ways. You can do it kind of just naturally by only having so many things available at a time. I mean, I think that's a great strategy. That's not, you're not tricking people into buying. If you only have 5 pieces available, you only have 5 pieces available. And that can be easier for you as well. You don't have to create as much. Or in other ways, you could just have a set amount of time. So a great example for this for artists could be, a discount until X date, a sale, or, I'm selling prints and I'm not going to have this SKU of print anymore after X date. So that's another good way to get people to purchase then versus if, you have things indefinitely, well, why would I buy it now if I can buy it 2 months from now? And so it's just kind of, again, capitalizing on our psychology and how we think. Another example of this, and this is kind of a broad marketing strategy, is people want to buy from someone they know, like, and trust. So it's a lot easier to sell to someone that knows you, they like you, they trust what you're doing, than someone who's never heard of you before. And that's why it's so hard to get started as an artist. Your first sales are usually your friends and family. It's really hard to just sell to somebody out of the blue. Sorry, out of the blue. And that's because if they don't know you, why would they? There's so many artists out there. How's it going to come? How's it going to be shipped? When is it going to arrive? Is it going to be this big? So that's where social media can really come in, because you can build that. 1, they can get to know you. 2, they can begin to like you. And then 3, they can trust you because you can build credibility in different ways. And that can be through testimonials. If you work with interior designers, you can stage your artwork in beautiful homes. Like, there's so many ways to show, your process and how they can begin to trust you as well. And so going off that, testimonials and referrals are still one of the best marketing tools for artists. And that's because testimonials build credibility. They're social proof. They show you do what you say you do. How great is it when a client says, oh my gosh, you made a commission for me and it brought me to tears. It was, done on time. It was so amazing. Like, if you can share that in some way, people are going to love that. And that's makes it so much easier to sell. And then referrals are great. Just think about, even if you're buying, a shirt, if your friend says, oh my gosh, this brand's so great, I love everything about them, aren't you so much more likely to purchase from them? And so I think kind of working on referrals, especially with artwork, when there's so many artists out there, that's just such a great way to grow your business. And so we can use referrals through social media, which we'll talk about. Next, social proof builds credibility. That comes back to that trust idea. So social proof could look like, obviously people talking about your work, but also being in galleries. If you're in a gallery as an artist, that is social proof that you are a professional in some way or another. Or working with an interior designer and they put out these beautiful photos of their homes and your work is featured on their website. Like, all of those things, again, builds your credibility as an artist. Next, people purchase artwork for various reasons. So, more than these, but just like to live a certain lifestyle, or they want to tell a certain story about themselves, etc. And as your job as an artist is to understand you are telling them how you're going to help them live out that story that they want. The reason they're buying their artwork, how can you answer it? And then finally, I kind of want to touch on branding versus marketing. And so basically, if marketing is the big idea, branding is kind of how you execute. Branding is all the different touch points. So basically, branding is where your art, and your ideal customer all align, and then you carry it through everything you do. So it's your colors, it's your logo, it's your copy, it's your tone. If you are a bright and playful brand and all of your artwork is super colorful and that's how you show up, I want your Instagram to look this way. I want your TikTok to look this way. I want your emails to sound like someone that aligns with that brand. And that is what branding is. It's everything is very aligned. So those are this is like an overview of just some marketing concepts. Okay. So now I want to talk about ideal customer. And so what is your ideal customer? This is that person that, if any of you have Instagram, for example, they like everything you do. They DM you all the time. They're always like telling their friends about you. I don't know if you have people like that. It even can be someone you know, but they're just so obsessed with everything you're doing. They're sharing your events. They're sharing when you have a gallery opening. It's that person that would tell all of their friends about everything you do. But how do you find this person? I actually have a resource on my website. If you go to theartcoachingclub.com, it's a pop-up. So it'll pop up when you go there, and you just put in your email and it'll get sent to you. And it just walks you through the steps of kind of understanding your customer. But it's everything from, who they are, what they look like, where they live. Like, I like to give them a name. And so I actually was talking to an artist last week on my podcast for a future episode, and she was saying she kind of found her version of her ideal customer because she was posting on Instagram all the time, and she realized her best friend didn't have an Instagram. And so she started writing emails like she was writing to her best friend. And she was like, my best friend supported me. She loved a lot of my work. And through doing that, I feel like I had a vision for who my ideal customer was, because I just envisioned Sarah. I envisioned my best friend. And so I had this one person in mind, And every time I created content, I acted like I was speaking to that one person instead of acting like I was speaking to, the 1,000 people on my email list or whatever it is. And so what I want you to do is, first, you can work through the worksheet that I have and start to get an idea of who this person is, get really clear on what they care about, their values, where they shop, why they would want to buy from you versus another artist, those kind of questions. And then, you can combine that with people who have bought from you in the past. Like, do these things overlap? Do you understand your customer and why people are buying from you? And then you'll just tweak it over time. I mean, as our art evolves, our customer is going to evolve. You're going to learn more as you go, as you sell more. And this is something I just like to have in my studio at all times and continually tweak, because I feel like I've learned so much more over time as well. And so it's just a good exercise and practice to get into, to continually be like, do I know who I'm talking to? And so definitely recommend you understand who this person is, because I think it will make such a big difference in your marketing. And when it comes to social media, we don't want to just be wasting our time putting stuff out there trying to speak to everyone, because if you try to speak to everyone, you're speaking to no one. So this is really important, because I think when it comes to actually how we're going to do our planning for social media, this is who we're going to be trying to talk to. Okay, so last kind of marketing thing I want to touch on is the marketing funnel. So I think where a lot of small business owners, artists, people just kind of starting out get stuck is social media. I think a lot of artists, they're like, I made an Instagram page, I'm selling there, I'm good. That is not the case. It's great and social media is amazing, but you have to know its purpose. And I think if you just start, I think Instagram is an easy example, because I think that's where a lot of artists start, and you are just selling through there, you're not really capturing an audience. Yes, you have followers, but the algorithm can change tomorrow and all of those followers could just stop seeing your work. Your account could get hacked. All of a sudden you lose all those followers. So I like to really have a funnel that's driving people to something that you own. And this graphic I created is an example of that, but your funnel can be bigger, can be smaller. It's just an example of kind of how things flow. So what you want to do is figure out what's your end goal. Where are you driving people? So before we talk about social media, like, what is our goal with social media? Where are we trying to ultimately get people to end up? And that's probably our website to sell, or if you don't have a website, an email or something to you to buy your work, and then an email list. And I think a lot of people turn their nose up at email, and we're going to talk about email later, but I think it's so important to have a list of people that you own. And even if you're not ready to send emails yet, just capture them. It takes a long time to grow a list. It takes a long time to grow a following. So something you could start working on now. And so I think once you understand that you're using social media to build a following, to build your credibility, to get people to know, like, and trust you, but to ultimately drive them to something that you own, it kind of helps every piece of marketing that you do make a little bit more sense, because you have a purpose for it. And I'm big on purpose. I don't like just throwing a picture up and being like, cool. It's like, if I'm going to put the work into something, I want it to lead to results. And so to actually allow this to work, that's where you need a CTA or a call to action. So it's as simple as just adding, head to my website, or join my email list, or click here, or go there, or do this. Just adding one sentence at the end of a post can make it just tells people what to do next. And it doesn't always have to be, go buy from me. It can also just be, learn more about me, learn more about the collection, head to last week's Instagram post to read more. It can also be just things to help them know, like, and trust you more, but you just always want to have a call to action so people know what to do, and it keeps them on your page longer. Another quick fact, have proper links. I feel like, a lot of people don't take advantage of all the tools that these social media platforms offer. The link in bio and Instagram, you can do so much with that. Such an easy way to drive people to your website and your email list. As well as like the links and stories and stuff like that. So definitely make use of those, and then basically make it easy for people to do what you want them to do. My biggest pet peeve is when people do giveaways and they're like, okay, to join the giveaway, you have to like this post, follow through people, post it on your story, join my email list, and it's all these steps. Every time people do that, it's a huge mistake, and you end up getting no one to join your giveaway. Whereas if it's easy and it's like, just like this post and follow me, usually the giveaway does a lot better. And the reason is people want ease. And so you just want to make it as easy for people as possible. So instead of saying, if you want people to join your email list, don't go to my website and then click this link and then click this and then click subscribe. Say, click the link in my bio, click right here, drop your email list in this, you can have those question boxes, like, make it so it's just one step and super easy. Okay, so now we're going to get into all the different social media platforms. So we're going to start with Instagram because it's the most popular. I'm probably going to spend the most time here, and then we'll buzz through the rest, and then we can kind of get to y'all's specific questions. So Instagram, as I've said, by and large, most popular for artists. I did read actually this morning that most of the users in the United States are between 18 and 34. 71% of US users are in that range, but it's obviously most of y'all use Instagram. You know, that's a lot of people, a lot of ages use it. So I do think it's a good place to be. What I will say is understand your goal. So we talked about your marketing funnel, but also I think Instagram is such a great place to build a relationship with your followers while creating an ongoing portfolio. So I don't think of Instagram, and again, I'm going to date this because I think Instagram's constantly changing with the algorithm. I think it used to be an amazing place to grow this huge following. I think with the algorithm now, I'm more of get the right people, get your ideal customer, and really nurture them so they actually purchase from you. Because it's a lot harder to grow a following now. It's different. The algorithms change. It's harder to get seen as a small business owner. That's the reality of it. Does that mean we should give up on Instagram? I don't think so, because as a gallery owner myself and someone who's working with artists every day, when you reach out to me, the first place I go is your website, if you have one, and then your Instagram. And I feel like if you don't have an Instagram, at least right now, because it's still everyone uses it. I just think you need it as a kind of portfolio piece. And so with Instagram, what I recommend is just thinking of it as a personalized, ever evolving portfolio that you're kind of continuing to add to. And with Instagram, especially, consistency is key. And I think people a lot of the times ask, okay, well, how often should I be posting? I mean, to be frank, more is better. If you could post every day, that'd be great. But that's not realistic for a lot of people. And so when I say consistency is key, consistency could be once a week for you, and that's totally fine, but be consistent. If it's Mondays and Mondays work for you, post every Monday. It's just a platform that really, really likes that consistency. Something else I would say, kind of talking about actually what to post, when it comes to posts and reels, I think we're taking a step away from this overly curated, overly matching, caring about your grid content, and people are really caring more about authenticity now. And so it's interesting because I feel like 2 years ago, I probably wouldn't have said this, but I think now the success I'm seeing is people that aren't too curated. And I mean, obviously you don't want to be posting bad photos. Like, please, when it comes to your artwork, take good photos because that's you trying to sell. But also don't be afraid to post a picture of you doing something, or, just get on a reel and you don't look perfect and your hair's not done or whatever. Like, I think showing up as yourself, people value that so much right now. And that's how you're going to build those authentic relationships that are so important as artists. And I think something we have to realize as artists is that people will always come across your page, and you'll always get those people that are like, oh, it's great, it matches my couch, it's pretty, click, buy. But that's not really who our ideal customer is. We want the people that love what we do, love our story, love who we are going to come back time and time again. It's not just about the art being pretty, because there's plenty of pretty art out there. You want the people that love you, your story, the brand as a whole, because that's how you build a successful business. And you do that through showing up as yourself authentically on social media. Tip 2 is, and this is something I sort of discovered a while ago, and it's not a crazy idea, but what I like to do is think of 5, it can be 6, it can be 7, but a couple of topics that you can cover. And then I just rotate through those on my Instagram page. And so for an artist, that could be, maybe if you're doing 5, 3 to 4 of them could be very specifically art related. So it could be, actual pictures of just your artwork or staged pictures of your artwork. It could be inspiration. It could be studio shots, behind the scenes, but then maybe you do 1 or 2 that are a little bit more personal. So if your audience is young moms and you're a young mom, maybe showcase some of that. If you do a ton of pet portraits and your clientele loves their pets, show your pet. Like, it's speaking to who you are, but also in a way that your audience can really relate to. And so I think having a couple of topics that you just rotate through, at least it helps me just know what to post. And so a lot of the times it's like, every Tuesday, I know I'm going to post a quote. People love that. And at least for me, it's like done, Tuesdays checked off, easy. And so it's just thinking of it that way, where it's giving you some structure, because I think a big issue a lot of us have is content and not having enough content. And so this can help with that. Going off of that, don't be afraid to reshare content. 1, with the algorithm, most people aren't seeing your content the first time. 2, it can be actually really strategic. So what I do is I go back to a year, 6 months ago, and I see what my top performing post was, or, couple of posts, and I just reshare those. And either I'll tweak them if it's like a reel, or something that might be dated, I might change a little bit. But a lot of the times I post the exact same thing. And usually it does even better the second time. And I think people are scared to do that. But I feel like if a lot of you followed me on Instagram, you probably wouldn't even notice that I'm doing this. So definitely recommend that. And if you're posting enough, I mean, people aren't backstalking you as much as we think, or keeping tabs on just you as much as you think. So that's a really good way to capitalize on material that's already done well in the past. Another tip is longer captions tend to do well. I definitely am not one that's writing super long captions all the time, but I think the more you can personalize it, and, you know, if it is a new collection, actually talk about why you're creating it, your inspiration, all of that, the better it's going to do naturally. So definitely think longer captions when you can. They're going to help you. Final tip kind of with creating posts and reels on Instagram is Canva. I'm sure a lot of you use it. If you don't, it's an incredible tool. It is like InDesign for dummies. Like you can make beautiful graphics. They have so many templates, but it's so easy. It's free. You don't need the paid version. I use the free version. But if you go to my Instagram, the Art Coaching Club, it's every single post I think on there. It was created in Canva. It's just super easy. I actually made this presentation in Canva. Not that this is anything crazy, but like it's just really easy to make stuff that looks great and professional. So definitely recommend that just if you want to kind of update your feed and your branding a little bit. When it comes to stories on Instagram, another great place to be authentic and less or not curated at all. So I use my stories as like spur of the moment. Here we go. Like this today, I put on a story like, hey, email went out. If you didn't get it, you know, here's what to do. And I just did that because I was like last minute, want to make sure everyone has this information. And so I think it's just an easy way to just show up as yourself. Don't overthink it. With all of this, I actually, with posts and reels and that kind of content, I schedule all my stuff to allow myself to be consistent. And the only thing I don't schedule ahead of time is stories. So when it comes to scheduling, there's so many tools out there. I use Tailwind, but there's Planoly, there's Plan or something like that. If you Google scheduling tools, there's so many out there. And I'm like, I don't have time to be getting on my Instagram every single day. It stresses me out. I would so much rather get on Monday, schedule my whole week. I know 7 posts are going out. I know they're going out at optimized times, and then I'm done. And then when I'm feeling inspired, I can just go put up a story for fun. So that's kind of what works for me. And it's just kind of like a little hack to make your life a little bit easier. When it comes to the uses of Instagram, and this is kind of social media in general, what I like to use it for is answer people's questions before they ask. So make your life easier, avoid the email, you know, like it's such a great place to say, oh, you want to work with me for a commission? Here's my process. Here's how it works. How do I ship stuff? Here's how I do it. Show a video, talk them through it, write it in a caption, like put it in a story. It's just so great to like explain exactly your framing process, exactly how things are delivered, exactly what it's going to look like to work for you, because work with you, because that builds trust, but it just answers people's questions. And I think a lot of hesitation happens when people don't have all the questions answered ahead of time. And that can be a reason people don't purchase. So use Instagram as a tool to answer their questions. It's also a great place to showcase your style, what your work can look like in homes. And, you know, obviously, like if you work with a designer, they can have beautiful photos. So you definitely want to take advantage of showcasing all of that. And I think making that connection for people, because I think a lot of people that aren't in the creative realm or the design world can see your work and say, oh my gosh, this is beautiful, but how's it going to translate? And I think Instagram's a great place to show, here's what it looks like in a stunning home. You know, your house can look like this too. And then obviously coming back to that, it can build credibility. It can, you know, through testimonials, follower count, engagement, all of that just shows, you know, you're a professional. I would say don't get too caught up in follower count. You know, it's more important to have the right people than a lot of numbers. But if you are someone with a really large follower count, obviously that does make you look a little bit more credible. So there's nothing wrong with that. And then finally, just kind of touching, the algorithm's always changing. So go with the flow, but don't get too caught up in the trends. Like I think this is a tool to help you grow, but at the end of the day, I think a big mistake I see artists making, and myself included, I definitely fall into it sometimes, is being so worried about especially their Instagram account that they spend hours making reels, doing like the hot new trend, like feeling like they have to do it all. When in reality, I think you need to come down to what is making you money. And if it's probably the actual artwork and the commissions and stuff like that, spend 80% of your time on the stuff that's making you money, and then say, all right, I'm happy to experiment with that other 20%. You know, like I'm consistent on Instagram, but if reels are the new thing, like maybe I spend a little bit of time working on those. Just my advice is go with the flow. Don't get too caught up in it, and it'll all work out. Okay, so continuing Instagram, sorry, that one was like a long-winded one, but it's just a big one for artists. Want to move on to Facebook. So I think Facebook does tend to kind of go a little bit older with a lot of the people that are seeing success there. I will say I did talk to a marketing expert last week, and she's gonna be on the podcast in 2 weeks. And she was saying, just don't sleep on Facebook. She was like, I think a lot of people see a lot of results there. I will say a lot of artists I work with one-on-one coaching have a lot of success on Facebook, but it does tend to be people that have an older audience. So it's just something to keep in mind. I think there's a lot of opportunities with groups. I think it's a great place to join, to kind of broaden your audience, meet other artists, meet other people, see what like art fairs and events and all of those kind of things are going on. And then you can also create your own. I mean, I have a business page for my business, and everything I put on Instagram also goes there. But you also can, schedule that to happen through, I think, the Meta platform. You can schedule, so you can schedule Instagram and Facebook, or you can do what I do and just have everything that goes to one just go to the other platform. So you're kind of doing double without actually having to do double the work. But I think you just need to, again, understand your purpose on Facebook and who are you trying to reach? Is this a place where you want to reach new customers? Is it a place where you want people to know, like, and trust you? Or do you want to join groups to learn more as an artist? Like, do you want to meet other artists, learn about shows, learn about events, stuff like that? So just kind of understanding your purpose. Okay, so YouTube. I think a lot of people forget about YouTube, but it is actually the most popular social media platform as of this year. So, and I think if you think about it, I don't know if a lot of us are scrolling on YouTube. Some people do, but also, I mean, anytime I Google something, like if I were to Google how to paint a tree and there's a video versus an article, I'm probably going to watch the video. So I think YouTube can be extremely beneficial, but I think you again need to understand who are you trying to reach here. I think if you're an artist teaching a course, wanting to do how-to videos, wanting to showcase, some of your skill, I think it can be amazing for that. And I think it has a lot of SEO benefits, which we can talk about in a second. But I think if you're trying to use it more in a social way to get people to learn more about you, that's where you need to figure out how comfortable are you on the camera? Do you want to do behind the scenes? Do you want it to be more vlog style? You just need to figure out what your purpose would be with YouTube. The one benefit of YouTube that Facebook and Instagram don't really have is SEO, which is search engine optimization. And so that is, using keywords to basically show up in search results. Like I just said, if you search how to paint a tree and that video comes up first, I mean, it's just naturally going to get a lot of views. And so you could kind of strategically use that to your advantage. So for example, if you had a video on, I'm trying to think of something that would help your clients, like how to frame really large scale artwork, and your video came up first, that could be a great way to showcase your knowledge, but also probably get in front of clients that are buying large scale artwork. So just thinking of it that way, I think YouTube has a lot of benefits that a lot of people would benefit from, but you have to be definitely comfortable on camera, obviously. TikTok, same way, need to be comfortable on camera. It's definitely a younger crowd of all of them, but more and more people are starting to get on the platform of all ages. So I wouldn't write it off just because you're worried about it being people that are too young to buy your work. I will say you have to show up a lot more. So if you have a lot of time, if you don't have a lot of time, probably not the platform for you. You need to show up often, like a few times a day. You need to be extremely authentic, like yourself. It is not as curated, but you also need to be someone that is great on camera, because that's all it is. And so it's much more about showing the real you, kind of behind the scenes, than like an Instagram where it is, you want to be authentic on Instagram, but it's still somewhat curated because you have that grid. I will say, I think with all the platforms, the more you show your face, like even on Instagram, I think people are like, oh, that's my cop out of not having to be on video. I think with any of them, the more you actually show up and show yourself, the better you're going to do. So just because you're like, oh, I hate being on camera, TikTok, YouTube aren't for me, I would say you probably still want to be someone on camera on Instagram, even if it's just very infrequently. Every little bit really makes a big difference. So just kind of keeping that in mind. Continuing, Pinterest is actually one of my favorite things to talk about right now. So it's not actually a social media platform, but I want to throw it in here because it is one of my biggest drivers to my website right now. So it's a search engine platform, and how you use that to your advantage is you can basically, people are asking questions there, in the search box, almost like a Google. If you can use the keywords to be the answer, obviously they might click on your post. That's great. But it also has a lot of longevity. So pins mature and gain popularity over time. So I could pin something 5 years ago and it can still be getting seen today. And so I think this is a really good thing to throw in the mix. If you're like, I am so exhausted of marketing, social media is just like taking it out of me. I hate posting every day. Maybe you put a little bit of time into one social media platform and put a little bit of time into Pinterest, because the work you do on Pinterest today is never going to really stop working for you. You do need to understand a little bit of SEO, and you need to understand a little bit about keywords, which if people have questions about that, I'm happy to answer them. I just didn't, again, want to save time for questions. So I'm kind of buzzing through some of this stuff, but I do think it's a really great platform because it's very focused on home design and people kind of finding inspiration for their homes. So I think 2 ways you can use this is, one, if you have a blog, if blogging is something you're interested in, having blogs specifically tailored to something your client might be asking. So how to hang a gallery wall is a great example. You could write a blog on how to hang a gallery wall, put that as obviously SEO benefits, it could show up on Google, but you also can have it on Pinterest. And so that could come up, people come to your site, read about how to hang a gallery wall. If they're hanging a gallery wall, they'll probably have a lot of photos, a lot of artwork. Then they're on your page, they're seeing your stuff. So the blog is one way you can use Pinterest. I think a second way is people are looking for home inspiration. And so just naturally you could put, if you ever work with an interior designer or you stage your artwork in beautiful places, you can just upload those and have them link back to your site. And even if that specific piece isn't for sale anymore, they're coming to your website. They probably liked that piece or that home, the way it was styled. It's getting more people and more traction to your site. And I think a lot of people are like, oh, Pinterest is outdated. Like, are people still using it? Well, just to give you some of my stats. So the Scouted Studio is my online gallery, and I've had that Pinterest page probably for 5 years. I have not touched it in months. So I'm not actively doing anything with it. And I'm getting 400,000 views a month, which is crazy. And I am not doing anything with it. And it's probably driving 40% of my website traffic to that website. And that's just through old pins of old artwork, but then people are coming, they're seeing the new artwork and they're purchasing it. So I definitely recommend Pinterest. And then I actually just created a new Pinterest page 2 months ago for the art coaching club, just to kind of see, all right, is this still viable? Is this still, can we still grow quickly if I don't have a Pinterest page that's 5 years old? And so in 2 months, I'm already up to over 1,000, like almost 1,300 views a month. And that's from posting like 2 to 3 pins a day. So it's really not anything crazy. And again, I just put those in my scheduling tool, and I'll just schedule in like 10 pins and it'll put them out over the week. And so it's really minimal effort for really big results. And so I'm already seeing a lot of people finding my Art Coaching Club website through Pinterest, which I love finding people that don't know me coming to my site, because that's just making everything easier. So definitely something to consider if you are, you already probably have great photos of your artwork. Why not just throw them up on Pinterest and link them back to your site? Okay, so kind of concluding thoughts, other thoughts. First, I think if you are interested in writing, if you like writing at all, I think blogs are really great because of the SEO benefits. So, again, you want to think about your customer and think about what is the value of the blog. Not every blog has to be for SEO purposes. I think a lot of benefits of a blog could just be getting people to learn more about you, learn more about your process, learn more about the inspiration for a collection that you did. But you also can have just a couple of blogs that are strategically placed for search engine optimization benefits, like how to frame, how to frame artwork on paper with deckled edges, or how to, again, like hang a gallery wall. I've given some of these examples, but if you, for example, are launching an unframed paper collection, I think having a blog on the 3 types of frames I would use to to frame my pieces, and then you can use those SEO benefits, and that can draw people to your site, but it's also informative. It's also related to the collection you're launching. So I think that can be strategic if you like writing. If you don't, there's a lot of other options. You don't want to have, a million things on your plate at all times. Next thought, there's always new platforms coming out. So there's Threads. I think there was the Lemonade, or however you say it, app that came out, and I did download that. I'm always experimenting. I talked to a marketing expert, and she specializes in digital marketing for small businesses. So and she was saying these things are great, but there are so many new things hitting the market at all times. As an artist, if you have the time and you're excited and you want to experiment with these, you can, but don't feel like you have to. I think a lot of people are like, oh, I wish I got on the Instagram train earlier, the YouTube train earlier. And because I missed out on that, that's why I don't have a ton of followers. And like, yes, there's some truth to that, but don't have that in the back of your head right when something new comes out. You don't need to be the first person on a platform if you're not excited about it. She actually recommended to, if you're, not into threads, that doesn't excite you, she's like, just sit back, wait, let it work out its kinks, let it decide if it's going to be a big platform. And if it looks like it's going to be valuable, then you can get on it. But she was just saying, just play around with the new stuff. Don't stress out about it. And I thought that was helpful hearing that from, a specific marketing expert. And then next thought, I want to circle back to email. I think email is where you should ultimately drive everyone. I think having a social media platform and having a following without also having them on an email list it's just, you're really missing a big opportunity. And I think if you listen to the podcast, Start Coaching Club podcast, you will hear almost every business owner, successful artist say, I wish I started my email list sooner. The biggest thing that's helped me is my email list. Most of my sales come from my email list. And so I just want to really reiterate that, because I think for everyone that doubts it or they worried about feeling spammy, I think you're really missing an opportunity. And I'll just say, in my own experience, I think like 80% of my actual sales, people converting, come from my email list. And I would say probably, I can't even tell you how much comes from Instagram, probably very little. So I really use Instagram to drive people to my email list. And that's where a lot of things actually convert. So just want to leave you with that. But really, kind of to conclude, I just want you to find what works for you. I think the best way to show up and what's going to resonate with people the most is being yourself authentically. And so if you hate being on camera, don't be on YouTube. If you love writing, do a blog. Like, understand it's going to take some work and it might feel a little bit uncomfortable at first, but ultimately you just need to find what works for you, and you'll get more comfortable and people get more comfortable over time. So to conclude, it's basically all about meeting your ideal customer where they are while speaking to them in a way that makes them relate to you. So just being yourself, people will relate with that or relate to that. And then using tools, I think, can be really strategic. So using your analytical tools like Instagram polls, website tools, Instagram or social media analytics, that can help you to understand what's working and what's not. And you can just slowly get better and better over time by repeating the actions that work well. So those are just kind of some concluding thoughts. I know I kind of buzz through all of this, but there's just so much I could talk about that I feel like I had to talk really fast to get it all covered. But I think with that, we can get into some questions, and then I'll round us out with a little bit of just extra resources, things you can learn more, and how to work with me and stuff like that. So it looks like I'm going to open up the chat and I'll read the question out, and then if it's yours and you want to follow up, you're welcome to unmute yourself. I'm just trying to keep it, there's a lot of people in here, so I'm trying to keep it somewhat organized. Let's see. Okay, so first question, how often do you recommend sending out emails, monthly, weekly, or whenever you have news? It's kind of what works for you. Here, and I'm going to give you my explanation. First and foremost, if you're an artist and you need the structure, build structure. If you're someone who's like, I need to send an email out, have it on my calendar, have a deadline, send it out every month. I don't recommend starting with every week because you might not have something to say every week. But if, even quarterly, if that's what works for you and you need to have it in your calendar, then I think having that cadence is helpful. If you are someone who can hold yourself accountable, you will send out emails without having a deadline, I would say do it when you have news. And so the reason for that is you don't want to be just sending emails to send emails. I think if you really had to, you could probably think of news every month. But what I do is I just send emails when I have something to say, which ends up being pretty frequently, but I'm never just sending an email to hit a deadline. And so I think to kind of answer it, it's if you need the structure as a creative brained person, build the structure for yourself. If you don't, just keep a kind of running list of things that you might want to talk about and might want to share, and then send an email when you kind of have enough to fill an email. I'll also say just kind of one more thing about email. Talk like yourself. I think some people do send emails a little bit more frequently and they kind of send it as like a personal letter almost. People love that. I think people like feeling like they're hearing from you. I have one artist I actually talked to, and she just sends it like from her Gmail. It's not, I mean, I use templates and stuff, and I think having a beautiful email is great, but she's also like, I just keep it super personal. Like I literally send a paragraph and it is from me, and her audience likes that. It's just about understanding your audience and understanding, again, what works for you. But I think being kind of natural in your tone is something that's really helpful. Okay, next question. Have you found that scheduled posts get bumped down in the algorithm? I've heard a rumor about this, but haven't confirmed it. Okay, so I will touch on this. I was worried about that, but I've scheduled my post since the beginning of my Instagram. And yes, I have some posts that don't do well, but I have some posts that totally take off. So I kind of feel like it's Instagram in general is hit or miss. And if scheduling is what's going to get you to post and get you post consistently, I would say do that over being worried about the algorithm. Now, if you have the time and you can go in there and manually post, I'm sure that's great. I just frankly don't. And so I was like, I'm going to take the risk and use the scheduling tool, and I haven't found any issues. So that's my opinion. Let's see. Eric said, what platforms do you use to connect with other artists? I think it's really, there's a lot. It depends on what you want to do. I'm a big fan of just DMing people on Instagram. I think there's nothing wrong with that. If it's something a little bit more personal, I kind of love that. I love when somebody will reach out and they're like, hey, I just really love this post, or I really love this piece. I think when you actually get a one-on-one message, that's how you can build like a really close relationship, I feel like, quickly. And people, I think, also are more open to talk to you, give you advice. Like if it's another artist, if you just send them kind of a one-off message like that. I think if it's in terms of groups, I think there are some, definitely some groups in Facebook you can look into depending on what you're specifically interested in. You know, watercolor, there's watercolor groups, stuff like that. I have a membership platform. And so, you know, you can definitely connect with artists in there. I know another kind of community platform is called Harvest, and they're a little focused a little bit more on like community building. So it's just kind of like, what are you looking for? There's a lot of resources out there to connect with artists, because I do think it's a very individual career. So definitely want to find ways to interact with other people. Next question, Klaviyo, or I'm probably not saying that right, or MailChimp. So I use Klaviyo. I don't know how to say it, but that is the email marketing platform I use. I actually want to throw Flowdesk in there too. So I think it kind of depends on where you are in your career. So I think Klaviyo and MailChimp have the two best free plans, and they're easy, they integrate, awesome. I think if you're willing to take the next step to pay for something, I think Flowdesk is so easy to use, so beautiful. If you're not comfortable like in the back end making really pretty templates, all of that kind of stuff, Flowdesk does it all for you. It's just like beautiful from the get-go. So I think if you're willing to spend a little bit of money, and email is what you're willing to spend that money on. I mean, I'm big about starting bare bones, starting low budget, and then building your way up. If you're at a point where you want to invest a little bit in email, 100% recommend Flowdesk. If you want to start with the free version, you don't have a ton of subscribers, that's totally fine. I think either Klaviyo or MailChimp is fine. I personally think MailChimp's a little clunky. I feel like they were the best ever starting out, and I kind of find now, I work with a lot of artists that use it. I don't know. I just feel like it's hard. It's not super user-friendly. It's hard to make things look really good, but that's just my opinion. I think it's one of those, you have to pick a platform and you get used to it as you do it. But I personally use Klaviyo, and I'm really probably saying it wrong, but it's super easy to use, and that's Klaviyo for anyone looking. Next question, do you think the meta verification is worth it? Okay, this is total a personal opinion, but I kind of don't think so, because I think if you can pay for it. So I'm kind of like, is it worth it if everyone knows you can? I don't know. That's my opinion. I haven't done it, but I think if you have it, there's probably reasons to do it. I just haven't, because I'm kind of like, I don't know. Maybe if people start making fake accounts, I'll do it. But right now, I just don't know if it's totally worth it. But it's also new. So, any other questions? I feel like I kind of ran through those about anything. Let's see. As your art evolves, do you ever go back and clean up your old posts? Okay, very interesting. I actually read something a while ago that hurts your feed. Don't know if that's actually true, but I do have that in the back of my mind. I personally don't. I kind of think it's really nice to see the evolution, and I actually love, I mean, obviously I'm a gallery owner and an art coach and an art person, but I actually love back scrolling through really successful artist pages and kind of seeing their story of how they got there. And I think it kind of comes back to that idea of know, like, and trusting someone and seeing like they didn't have it all figured out right away, and kind of showing that story and that lineage, I think is kind of nice. As long as it's far enough back. I mean, if you posted something a week ago and you're like, I mean, it probably wouldn't be a week ago, but like 2 months ago, and you don't ever want to paint something like that again, and you don't want people like reaching out about commissions or something, I guess you can take it down. But if it's really old posts, I don't think it matters. And I kind of think it's nice to keep it on there. One other question. Can you be both on Etsy and Fair? Having a hard time finding a straight answer. I actually don't know. Oh, okay. Looks like the answer is yes. Okay, good. Because I was like, I'm not sure. I know people that use Etsy and I know people that use Fair, but I don't know if I know artists that use both. So now you know. And just to touch on that, I think both are amazing platforms. I also have someone coming on the podcast very soon to talk about Etsy. And I think Etsy can be another really great platform. It's not social media, obviously, it's a sales platform, but they do have their own marketplace, and it is a place where you can use specific keywords and SEO kind of like tactics to get your work seen in front of a new audience. And so I think if you're getting started, Etsy can be a great platform because you're getting in front of their audience. It's free to use. I mean, they take a commission, but I think when you're first starting out, a website can be expensive and those monthly fees can be expensive. So I think being on Etsy can be helpful because it's free up front and then they just take a commission if something sells. And it's not, I mean, people were complaining about them raising the commission, but it's really, I use Etsy, I think it's 6%, which like really isn't terrible. So I think that's better than paying, $20 a month or something when you're first getting started. Another question, let's see. What is a good balance of showing life and art versus business on social media? I love seeing both on others' pages, but I hear mixed things on this. I really think you need to think about what you like seeing. So what I would say is think about your ideal customer. Obviously, your ideal customer is probably going to look something like you, because if you love your art, people like you are going to kind of love your art. So when it comes to actually thinking about what you want to post, think about your favorite companies, artists, I mean, beyond just artists, like people, content creators, influencers, like fashion people, whatever it is. Think about your top 5 people that you follow them, you love seeing everything they're doing. What are they posting? Are they posting a balance? Because if you like seeing them post, a balance of business and life and art, then likely your audience will like that too. Now, if your favorite people are very curated and clean lines and very, I don't know, like totally the opposite of that, and your audience, then if the people you like are the opposite of that, then I will say your audience probably is also going to want you to post that way. So I typically think about, what would your audience look for? What are you looking for? What do you like other people posting? And then kind of emulate that on your own page. And then look at the analytics, see what does really well. I mean, I'm such a fan of just going back and seeing what posts did the best and can I post more of those? Okay, one more question. How much time should you spend engaging with other people's brands posts? So this is actually huge, and I definitely should have brought this up earlier, but it's social media. They want it to be a social platform. So if you post and then never go on the app, you probably will get penalized for that. And I know I said scheduling tools and I don't love being on my phone all day and all of that. And that's true. I do think, I use scheduling tools because I like to post and then kind of know what's going out. And I think for consistency's sake, that's great. But I do think you do want to get on the apps. And also just from a standpoint of, if you interact with other people, they're going to interact with you. I mean, maybe it's not liking and liking, but it could be, you DM them, they DM you, you reshare their post, they reshare yours. I mean, the artists I work with the Scouted Studio are the most supportive group of people ever. I mean, every time there's a launch, they're all resharing each other's, stories and artwork and all this stuff. And I think that's just from being natural. And what I would say to answer this question is, don't overthink it. Just like when you get on the app, don't be like, okay, I need to comment on 6 posts and I need to follow 3 people, and just act like a normal person. Just get on there. And if you like someone's art, say that you like it. If you really love like a post reshare it. If you like what someone's doing, send them a DM. Just use it kind of naturally as a way to actually get to know people, and you will see the benefits. Next question. Thoughts on growing with your audience as an artist by gauging their preferences of your different styles of work, your artwork through Instagram, trying to figure out what's going to sell best, what do people like best, not knowing what to make more of. Would that be unprofessional or hinder my value? So basically, I think what this is asking is, can you put stuff out there on Instagram and sort of test the waters and see what your audience likes and then kind of grow from there? Absolutely. I think there's a way to strategically do this, and I'll touch on that next, but I think a big mistake I see artists making is they're so scared to step outside of their like quote unquote style that they really hinder themselves. And we are artists, we are creatives, we are, meant to think outside of the box, but for some reason we feel like we have to put ourselves in these tiny boxes of like, this is my niche, I need to stay inside of it. And I think we need to allow ourselves to be creative within, while also having a strategy. So what I would say is, if you do have a very defined audience and you already have a style, definitely post majority of that style, the stuff that's selling, but throw some new stuff up in your stories, throw a new post up every now and again, and just see what people like. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, that's how you're going to grow. It's how you're going to evolve. It's how you're going to not get burnt out. You're going to stay interested. I think if you're a brand new artist and you haven't found your voice yet, I would say it's okay to put everything out there. If you go to my Instagram account, my personal art account, which I don't really use anymore, but when I was first starting out, I posted actually everything under the sun, like any art I would ever create. I started it when I was in college. I was an art student, so I wasn't really limiting myself. And I think that's how I actually found my voice, because I just looked at what people were liking and what people were commenting on. And I think you'll find that a lot of artists that built their businesses, they had that first 6 months of just trial and error. And then you can start to refine. But I think you need some time to just figure out what you like and what your audience likes. And that's what the platform is for. Like, use it for the analytics, use it to learn about what people are interested in, and then get more curated. You just don't want to guess what your audience likes and then only post that stuff because you might be missing out on an opportunity. Best link in bio tool. So I'm trying to think. I've used a couple. So I have mentioned before that I use Tailwind. It's my scheduling tool. Some people love it, some people hate it. So, I mean, take that with a grain of salt. But if you use Tailwind, it's awesome because you can use it for Pinterest, you can use it for Facebook, and you can use it for Instagram. And it started out as a Pinterest partner. So they really use all the best practices there, whereas a lot of the scheduling tools for Pinterest, I think, got banned or like weren't doing best practices. So I really like it for those reasons. And they have a built-in bio tool. So that's what I personally use, and I really like it. But I do think if you look at, I think Linktree is great. I think any of them are actually pretty awesome. I think if you can use one that is attached to your scheduling tool, it's just one less thing to log into, because at the end of the day, it's just linking to a couple stuff. But if you aren't using a scheduling tool, I think Linktree is a good one. I think literally if you just Google Instagram link in bio tool, I think any of the probably top 3 that come up are going to be great. Any other questions? This is great. I hope everyone enjoyed it. I will just conclude with, I'm going to send this out to this full email list with the recording. So, if you wanted to take notes or anything like that, I'll send out the recording. I will also send out, let me kind of go through some of my other resources, because I'll send some of this out as well. If you are new and you hadn't followed the Art Coaching Club before, don't know a lot about me, I am an art coach. I also have a membership platform. I run the Scouted Studio Art Gallery. So, and then I have a podcast. And so when it comes to resources for artists, I would say start with the podcast and the blog. So it's the Art Coaching Club podcast, anywhere you listen to podcasts. The blog is theartcoachingclub.com. Both are free. I wrote a couple of podcast episodes that are specifically related to social media and marketing. The Kate K episode dives really deep into Instagram strategies, so definitely recommend that one if you're interested in Instagram. The Hannah Law episode, she is a social media marketing for artists expert. Like, that is her full-time job. So it's the most popular episode we've ever done. Definitely recommend. Davey and Krista, their web developers. And then Davey also has a marketing business. So that whole episode is talking a lot about your website, but also marketing as a whole. And then I have another really great episode that's coming out, I want to say mid-August, and it's with Millennial Marketing, and they're a small business digital marketing agency. And so I think starting with the podcast is just such a great resource because you're hearing from all of these experts. Definitely recommend you subscribe because it comes out every Tuesday, but sometimes I do these like bonus marketing episodes and kind of expert episodes on Thursday. So subscribing is a great way to do that. And then I do have ebooks and templates for sale on Etsy, and you can find them on my website, theartcoachingclub.com. They range from, I mean, most of them are like in the $10 to $15 range. And I have, you know, a financial tracker if you want to get better at budgeting. I have a commission template or commission contract template if you are doing a lot of commissions. I have Launch Your Art Business, which is an ebook, kind of covers everything to start your business. So that's kind of the next tier up. And then if you do want a little bit more of ongoing learning, definitely recommend the membership. It starts at $10 a month. Those spots open 3 times a year, and they're opening the week of August 14th to the following Monday, and that all of those things come with it. So it's weekly videos, optional one-on-one coaching, access to all the ebooks and templates I talked about for free, discussion groups, and more. So a lot to do there. There is a wait list though. You get first access to all different tiers. So I can include that in email when I send this out. And so if you're interested, definitely recommend joining that. And I will email all of this to you after the call. But this was really great. And I loved talking to you. I mean, I kind of feel like I'm talking to myself right now, but I can see your faces. So this is great. And hopefully it was helpful and kind of gave y'all some ideas about your marketing and social media. Cool. Well,
Thanks, Haley.
Thank you. I'm going to end the call, and then I will follow up with some emails and just more information. I did another one of these on how to reach out to galleries and interior designers. And so I'll send that in the email too, just as some extra learning for all of you guys. But this was really fun. So I appreciate all the questions and y'all listening to me ramble for an hour.
Thank you so much, Haley. You're amazing.
Thank you. Well, this was great. I'm going to end it, and I will talk to y'all soon.